Welcome to Glowing Success. My name is Heidi and I am your host. This podcast is for beauty entrepreneurs. Join me weekly as we dive into the beauty industry's ins and outs, from business strategies, top-selling services, and taboo topics. I will be interviewing industry leaders with empowering stories and game-changing insights. Let's illuminate your path to success together. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. Today's episode is all about why I carry local and small product lines only, how I made the switch from large corporations to small, local. I'm so excited to share this information with you guys because it is definitely something that I thought about for a long time, did a lot of research, and finally made that switch, and I'm much happier for it. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Glowing Success. I'm so excited about today's topic. So, why I chose to only carry local or small business product lines. So, I have been in the beauty industry a little over 20 years. I have had my business for going on 13 years. And my career has taken me a lot of places. So, I have worked in chains, so membership-based spas. I have worked for small kind of high-end hairstyling salons. I have worked in a laser clinic. I have done so many different jobs. I have also worked for a spa that's located inside of a fitness club, all before and while I was starting this business, Sapphire Spa. So I've had a lot of opportunity to work with product lines over the years that are very large and well known and have great, education, have great marketing and so forth. And I've even purchased and used those lines early in my spa as well. So I have a lot of experience with those, and don't get me wrong, some of them are great and they offer really great products, and I am really appreciative for the education I've received from some of the companies. But ultimately, in the last probably 2 to 3 years, I have been leaning towards either local or just small businesses. Specifically, maybe minority-owned or woman-owned businesses as well. So those are kind of my pockets of focus. And the reason being is I didn't see my money going back into my community as much. So when you support a very large business, generally speaking, that company is owned by a parent company that is very large as well. So, in America, I think the running joke is when you go to the grocery store, over 60% of the food in the grocery store is owned by the same top 3 companies, right? So it kind of goes true for the beauty industry. Like, a lot of products out there are owned by the top head people. So let's say, for instance, L'Oreal, that parent company, that owns a lot of different brands, a lot of different companies. So they're, Estee Lauder, they own a lot of different brands and companies. So for me, I was seeing that, not only is that money not directly going back to the community how I would like it to go, but I just was like, hey, if I am going to sit here and tell people to support a small local business like mine, why am I not turning around and doing that in every aspect of my own business? I had already been using a local line to Minnesota here for my own skincare for many years, and had already been using a small, I would say a small woman-owned line for my chemical peel line. I have already been using so many different lines that were smaller already in my personal life, or just, trying them out, so to speak, before I brought them into my spa. So I was definitely excited when the skincare line I was using at home said that we can buy it for in-spa or wholesale. I was so eager and so ready to buy for my spa at that time. So just a shout out, Romy Apothecary is who I'm talking about and who I've been using at that time for a very long time before I brought it into my spa and before she offered the opportunity for other people to bring it into their locations. So I already had fallen in love with that line myself, and I liked what she was about. I liked her ingredients that she was using. I just liked the story behind it, and I just like knowing that, hey, when somebody purchases these products, not only are they formulated in close to the city that I work in, but they are also just going, that money's going back into your community a little bit more efficiently. The peel line I carry is a Lane Brennan, and Lane Brennan is a woman-owned business. Linda owns the company now, and her mom is Elaine, and her mom started the peel, I believe, back in the 70s. And Linda is now carrying that company and bringing it to new heights, I should say. But I love her peels, so I was like, well, why not carry some of her skincare line? So those helped me make those choices. But I will say, like, when I was making those broad choices, like, you really have to keep in mind what you are wanting to put out in the world, how are you wanting to project to your clients? I mean, there's so many decisions we have to make as a business owner, right? So don't get me wrong. Some of these decisions, it definitely took me a while to make. And I will continue to do that. So even going forward with my lash lifting solutions, I am also thinking about going with a more local company rather than the big company I go with now. And you could take this in so many ways, right? So not only the retail that you sell, but also the supplies that you use in your room to offer your services. And I'm not saying there's anything completely wrong with going with the large companies, but don't you want to differentiate yourself from the other people around you? So, I see a lot of the top probably 3 or 4 companies mentioned online a lot. I see a lot of the top, 3 or 4 companies around my own town a lot. And at some point, you kind of have to look like, okay, how am I being different than maybe the person next door to me? So one of the things I coach my clients with is, if you're noticing stagnant sales, or if you're noticing your marketing is kind of feeling raw or stale, or if you are just really trying your best to bring in different clients, one of the first things I look at is not only their marketing efforts in general, but how are you different than the people around you? So let's take like a 1 to 2 mile radius, right? And just look at all the different competition around you. So I'm talking about people that are offering the same services. People are offering, either the same or similar services, or people that have very similar marketing to you, things like that. And how are you differentiating yourself? So like, it could be a small thing, it could be a large thing, it doesn't matter. But, maybe bringing in a more local, or a product line that's supporting minority, or a product line that is more focused on a cause or something like that could be that differential factor. So for me, it really was important for me to do those things and support things in different ways than what I was seeing around town. And I have been so excited. I've been so, you feel a lot better about selling your product line, knowing like there's a story behind it. And my clients love hearing that story. It's like I tell them, hey, this product is made in St. Paul. Like, it's made locally, it's woman owned. There's so many different positive factors that I can bring through on top of the products just selling themselves, right? So obviously make sure you're doing your due diligence and researching this company, trying it out, trialing it, doing all those types of things, because obviously you're not just going to bring in some local company just because. You have to also fall in love with the product just the same as you fall in love with the product of one of those large companies you're probably currently using now. I think so there's some pros and cons on each side, right? And you really have to weigh out those pros and cons for yourself. So obviously, like, every decision that I make in my business, in my life, is not necessarily going to be right fit for what you make in your business, in your life. So I always tell people, like, it has to be personal. You have to dive into it for your own personal reasons. I'm just sharing today about the reasons I have chosen this, and maybe hopefully I can inspire another person to make those same decisions. Now, I bring out the pros and cons because there's obviously cons and pros and cons on each side. So obviously a pro for going with a large brand or a large company is their marketing usually is really easy to accept, right? So like they already have a ton of place cards that you can put on your retail shelves. They already have, a ton of videos maybe that you can share online. They probably have like really tidied up marketing brochures that you can give off to your clients. Like their protocols are already thought through. Like there's so much to be said about that because those large companies have that money to invest in that part. But sometimes you'll find the con with that as well is it tends to be a little bit like gimmicky, right? It tends to be a little bit like, oh, I've seen this brochure before in another brand, or I've seen this kind of, marketing in another brand, so to speak. So you really have to make it personal sometimes with your own ways. So like, let's say you don't have control over the company you're using right now. So let's say you work for a company, a large company, and they really like this large brand and you have no control of it. Well, make it personal in some way. Make it, I have been using this specific product for this many years and it gave me this result. So it could be simple as that. The pro with working with a smaller company is sometimes their marketing is more personal, right? Their marketing is more geared towards maybe the area you live in. So specifically myself, I'm working with a company that's in my same city pretty much. Like if you're familiar with Minnesota and the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul are twin cities, so to speak. So we're right next to each other. So we there's something relatable to that content that person's probably going to come out. Sometimes you also, a pro of marketing for a small company or smaller business is you might have some input about marketing going forward. So maybe you have an idea like, hey, as a service provider, I've been using your line this way. Would you be open to, this and that and the other? Obviously interject your own personal story there. There is some opportunity there that could be more marketable, I feel like. And sometimes the communication with a smaller company is more viable, right? So with these large companies, the one thing I didn't like, and one of the many reasons why I switched was I think I had a different sales rep for some of these companies like every 3 to 6 months. And I know that's something that eventually I want to do a whole nother topic on of, being a sales rep for a company and what that looks like and the day in the life, or like, why is there such a big turnover for that? Because when you're a small business, that consistency is everything. So whether it be consistency in marketing, consistency of how you offer your services, consistency of how you show up for your clients, there's so much to consistency that we need to rely on. And so when the company that you're working with, whether the products change or not, but that consistency of who you talk to, who you order from, who you get your education from, who you're going to be doing an open house with, like so forth, it's important because, then you can rely on those people for when the questions come about that you just thought of, or when you have that really great idea for that open house, or that idea for bringing a different product line in and getting, proper education on it of different protocols. So I will say, like, that was one thing I did not like about the large companies was I couldn't build that relationship. Whereas the small companies that I've been working with, it's been pretty consistent, or the introduction is really good. So let's say I have a smaller company I'm working with and they're expanding, because that's obviously a great thing for a small company to do. And, they will introduce, so a lot of times it'll either be in an email or it'll be even a direct email towards you or something of that nature, however you communicate. And that introduction is really necessary. Like, hey, Heidi, I have this person coming into the company. They're great. They've been with us for a while now, but we're changing their role, or so forth, right? So that introduction is there. So that segue is going to be much easier, and that person can kind of take care of you in a different way. So the other thing that I think that I've really been liking with going with the small company, local company, minority owned company, what have you, is they have a little bit more control over the market. So like, excuse me. So what I mean by that is mostly my focus here was SPF. So with a lot of large companies, their SPF lines, and this is what I saw, and this is my personal experience, is their SPF lines were not good for darker skin tones. So they always left a white cast. And then when I talked to these large companies about, hey, is there going to be any other options for SPFs going forward? Can we offer any more formulation options? You know, for a while there, I was working with a manufacturing company to manufacture or private label my own line. And they had mentioned the amount of money it would take for me to basically do a custom formulation for an SPF that didn't have a white cast, basically. And so therefore I was like, well, I'm not going to work with you anymore, because if this is not something that's part of your line in general to be inclusive, that's not something I'm about. So like, I want to be inclusive. I want to invite all types of people into my business, and I want to be able to offer the same products and services that I offer everybody else. So obviously that was a deciding factor with me in that specific company, where I was like, wow, you want me to spend an X amount of money on my own to formulate my own product, but this isn't something that's naturally already offered in your current line. And I kind of wanted to ask them and dive deeper, why? Why is this not a standard in your line? If you're a large manufacturing company and I'm paying a high price for these products, so mind you, I'm paying a higher price for my wholesale, right? So I'm offering them at a higher price retail. Why isn't this something that's a standard? And I had no response. Right? So a lot of times in those large companies, because the turnover is so much, or because you are talking to many different people at one time, like you're talking to a shipping person, and then you're talking to a manufacturing rep, and then you're talking, so they have a lot of different sections, which rightfully so, if they're large, they should have, but you should also just have a rep that specifically speaks to you as an account, right? And I didn't get that response, and I didn't get, obviously that situation was never resolved, so I chose to not work with that company any further. So it could be a decision like that, right? Where you are not being satisfied with how they're showing up in the world. And I think for us as consumers, as us as small business owners, we need to hold these large companies accountable for their own actions. So just because something's been done a certain way for so long doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean you should continue to have that treatment or continue to accept those products. The other reason is I just wasn't able, I didn't like some of the products that they're coming out with. I was like, wow, these have a lot of fillers in them. They have a lot of ingredients in them that were not necessary. A lot of the larger lines that I've either been exposed to or have used in my own business always had fragrances somewhere in them. And I didn't understand that. I was like, why does this skincare line offer a fragrance? Like your skincare line should not have fragrances in them. I think any esthetician or any skin therapist will agree with me on this. Is like there's no room for fragrance in skincare. It does not serve a purpose. And a lot of times you'll find your clients will be allergic to that, or that's a reason they don't want the line, is it gives them irritation or something like that. So I've had many reasons. I know I can go off on a tangent with this because I'm so passionate about supporting local and small products and companies that this is something that I feel I could talk for days about. But ultimately, this has to be your decision. It has to be something that you feel in your heart. It has to be something that's right for your client base. It has to be, so there's so many reasons we make decisions. But I will say, the one thing I will hopefully come across to you today, whoever's listening, is think about it. As given an opportunity, give that small business that's maybe in your area an opportunity to shine and really show you what they're about, and and really do that research. So for me, I was actually, when I started this path and this journey, I was so surprised of how many local product lines there were in my own city and town that I was like, wow, I'm impressed. Like there's that many people in my area that dove into the not only ingredients, dove into the formulations, dove into, all of the packaging, dove into marketing. I mean, it takes a lot of work to come up with your own line. And whether it be you went with a large manufacturer and you're doing your own formulations with that manufacturer, or you are actually physically putting those ingredients together. Now, Romy Apothecary, who I work with, she physically puts the ingredients together. She physically formulates her own. I mean, there's so much passion and drive behind every ingredient that she uses. So that's really inspiring to me, right? But it doesn't necessarily always have to be like that. Like, I have worked with companies that you can pay a higher price to do your own formulations, and they have all of the ingredients. They have the master formulators and chemists, but you essentially can drive those decisions. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like I'm doing this in my own manufacturing area. But where is that passion coming from? So really look into it, people. Like, I think this is something that, we need to support each other. We need to support local businesses. And for me, one of the reasons was putting that money back into my community in a really organic way. And if you are supporting a local or small company, you're putting that money back into the community much faster and a lot better than if you're supporting these large corporations, in my opinion. So hopefully that can inspire you to do some research of companies that are in your area, try them out, do some your own trial and error, and really find if this is a good fit for you as well. It's worked really great for my business, and I am much happier knowing where my products are coming from and the companies I'm supporting. And yeah, I hope that for you as well. So thank you for listening. I hope you liked that episode and found something useful or a tip that you can use immediately. If you are wanting more marketing tips, business tips, or anything like that, I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have PDFs that you can download for free. So look in your show notes. There should be a link in the show notes that you can click on, and it'll take you right to my coaching website. And thanks for listening.